I led my team through the ruins of Zara, each step sinking into the desolate remnants of a once thriving world. Our reconnaissance mission had brought us here to this war-ravaged planet. Now nothing more than a graveyard. The atmosphere was tense, charged with the silent hum of danger. My squad moved in tight formation, eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement. The air was thick with the acrid sense of burning debris, mingling with the coppery tang of blood. Stay sharp. I whispered into the comms, my voice a low growl. We don't know what's waiting for us out there. Private Jenkins, the youngest member of our team, glanced at me, his face a mask of grim determination. He nodded, gripping his rifle tighter. We advanced our footsteps, the only sound against the backdrop of eerie silence. Suddenly the ground erupted around us, a barrage of explosions tearing through the silence. Alien forces hidden and waiting launched their ambush with deadly precision, the air filled with the deafening roar of gunfire and the screams of the wounded. I ducked behind a crumbling wall, my heart pounding in my chest. Return fire, I shouted, my voice barely audible over the chaos. My team responded, unleashing a hail of bullets at our unseen attackers. But they were too many, too well prepared in the chaos. I saw Jenkins go down, a laser bolt searing through his armor. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay focused. I couldn't afford to lose it now. I fired back each shot, deliberate, controlled, but it was clear we were outgunned. Fall back, I ordered. Regroup at the extraction point. The team scattered, each man fighting to survive, as I covered their retreat. A blast knocked me off my feet, sending me sprawling into the dirt. Disoriented and wounded, I struggled to get up my vision. Swimming, the sounds of battle faded. Replaced by a high-pitched ringing in my ears, I stumbled through the ruins, desperate to find cover. Alien soldiers pursued me, their guttural voices echoing through the streets. I ducked into an alley, my breath ragged. Ahead, I spotted an opening in the ground, half hidden by debris with no other options. I threw myself into the darkness. The cavern swallowed me whole. It's cool. Embrace a stark contrast to the burning world above. I landed hard, pain flaring through my side. Gritting my teeth, I forced myself to my feet. My eyes adjusting to the dim light, the walls were etched with ancient markings, their meaning lost to time. I leaned against the wall, trying to catch my breath. That's when I saw her. She was huddled in a corner, her luminous skin casting a faint glow in the darkness. Her eyes, wide with fear, locked onto mine. She was young, no older than a child, with an ethereal presence that was both mesmerizing and unsettling. Despite the danger, there was an innocence about her, a stark contrast to the brutality of the war outside. I took a cautious step forward, my hand raised in a gesture of peace. "Hey," I said softly, my voice echoing in the cavern. "It's okay, I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't move, her eyes following me wearily. I could see the fear in her eyes, the same fear I saw in the faces of my men when they realized they might not make it home. But there was something else too, something that spoke of untapped power barely restrained. I knelt down, trying to make myself appear less threatening. "What's your name?" I asked. Keeping my voice gentle, she didn't answer, but her gaze softened just a fraction. I took it as a good sign and slowly reached out. She flinched but didn't pull away. I kept my hand steady, waiting for her to make the first move. After what felt like an eternity, she reached out her small hand, trembling when our fingers touched. I felt a surge of energy, a connection that defied explanation. Her eyes widened in surprise, and I knew she felt it too. "My name is Alex," I said. "I'm here to help you." Still no words, but she nodded, a tentative trust forming between us. I knew I couldn't leave her here, not with the alien soldiers searching for us. I stood up, gently pulling her to her feet. "We need to get out of here," I said. "Can you walk?" She nodded again, and we started making our way through the cavern. The ancient markings on the walls seemed to glow brighter as we passed. As if reacting to her presence, it was both eerie and beautiful. We moved as quickly as we could, the sounds of pursuit growing louder. The cavern twisted and turned a labyrinth, the maze that seemed to go on forever. I didn't know where it would lead us, but anywhere was better than here. Just as we rounded a corner, a group of alien soldiers appeared, blocking our path. I raised my weapon, but before I could fire, the girl stepped forward, her eyes glowing with an intense light. She raised her hands and a shimmering shield materialized between us and the soldiers. The aliens fired, but their shots dissipated aided against the shield, leaving us unharmed. I stared in awe as the girl maintained the barrier, her face a mask of concentration. She was powerful, more powerful than I had imagined we need to move. I urged, snapping out of my stupor, "Can you keep it up?" She nodded her eyes, and never leaving the soldiers, we backed away. The shield moving with us, I'd led her through the twisting passages, hoping to find an exit before her strength gave out. We finally emerged into a small clearing, the cavern opening up to the sky above. I could see the stars, a stark reminder of the world beyond this nightmare. But there was no time to rest. The alien soldiers were still on our heels. "There's a communication post nearby," I said. My mind racing, "We can call for extraction." The girl nodded her face, pale with exhaustion. She had done more than enough, and I was determined to get her to safety. We sprinted across the clearing, my heart pounding in my chest. The post was just ahead, a small structure camouflaged among the rocks. We reached the door, and I punched in the access code. The door slid open, and we slipped inside, the sounds of pursuit growing fainter. I activated the comms, sending out a distress signal. "This is Captain Alex Hunter." I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. "I have a high-value asset requesting immediate extraction." There was a pause, then a crackle of static acknowledged. "Captain, extraction team en route, hold your position." I turned to the girl who was slumped against the wall, her breathing ragged. "We're getting out of here," I said, offering her a reassuring smile. "You're safe now." But even as I said the word, I couldn't shake the feeling that our troubles were far from over. This girl, Leora, as I would soon learn, was more than just a high-value asset. She was a key to something much bigger, something that could change the course of the war, and that made her a target for people far more dangerous than the soldiers hunting us. The extraction team arrived within minutes, their sleek transport ship descending from the sky like an avenging angel. I helped Leora to her feet, supporting her as we made our way to the ship. The team, dressed in black combat gear, eyed her wearily but said nothing. They knew better than to question orders as we boarded. I glanced back at the ruins of Zara, a silent vow forming in my mind. I would protect this girl no matter what the war had taken too much. Already I wasn't going to let it take her too. The transport lifted off the planet. Shrinking beneath us, I held Leora close, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. She was scared, but she trusted me, and I wouldn't let her down. We landed at the base of fortified complex, bristling with defenses. General Thorne was waiting for us, his sharp eyes missing nothing. He approached as we disembarked, his gaze fixed on Leora. "Captain Hunter." He said, his voice cold and authoritative. "Report." I straightened, meeting his gaze. "Sir, this is the asset I reported. She has significant abilities. I believe she could be crucial to our efforts." Thorne's eyes narrowed as he studied Leora. "Indeed. We will need to assess her capabilities immediately. Take her to the lab." I hesitated, a surge of protectiveness rising within me. "Sir, she's just a child. She needs rest." Thorne's expression hardened. "She is a weapon, Captain, and we need every advantage we can get. Take her to the lab." Reluctantly, I nodded and led Leora towards the lab. She clung to my side, her eyes wide with fear. I hated doing this to her, but I had no choice. Thorne was WR about one thing. We needed every advantage we could get as we entered the lab. A sterile, cold environment filled with advanced equipment. I felt a pang of guilt. This wasn't right. She wasn't just a weapon. She was a person scared and alone. Captain Hunter Thorne's voice crackled over the comms. "I expect a full report on her capabilities. By tomorrow, do not disappoint me." I clenched my jaw, fighting back a retort. "Understood, sir." I sat with Leora as the scientists prepared their tests, doing my best to reassure her. "It's going to be okay," I said softly. "I'll be right here with you." She nodded, her trust in me unwavering. It was a fragile thing, and I vowed not to break it. Hours passed as the scientists conducted their tests, probing and prodding. Measuring her abilities, Leora endured it all with a quiet strength that both impressed and saddened me. This wasn't the life she should have had. Finally, the tests were over, and I took her back to my quarters. She was exhausted, her luminous skin dimming with fatigue. "Get some rest," I said, helping her onto the small cot. "We'll figure this out." She nodded, curling up under the blanket. I watched her for a moment, my mind racing. There had to be a way to protect her to keep her safe from Thorn's machinations. As I turned to leave, the door slid open, and Aunt Serena burst in. Her eyes blazed with fury, and she pointed a weapon at me. Step away from her, she demanded, her voice a low growl. "She doesn't belong here." I raised my hands, trying to calm the situation. "Wait, Serena, I'm trying to help her." Serena's gaze flicked to Leora, then back to me. "Help her by turning her into a weapon for your war? That's not what I want," I said, my voice earnest, but Thorn will destroy her. "Serena," interrupted, her voice trembling. "With emotion, she's more than you can imagine. We were once allies, your people and mine. Her powers are tied to that ancient bond." I stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in allies. "What are you talking about?" Serena lowered her weapon, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and sorrow. "There is so much you don't know, Captain, but if you truly want to help her, you must get her away from here." I glanced at Leora, sleeping peacefully despite the tension in the room. The decision weighed heavily on me, but deep down I knew what I had to do. "All right," I said, meeting Serena's gaze. "We'll get her out together." Serena nodded, a look of relief crossing her face. "Thank you." As we prepared to leave, I knew that our journey was just beginning. The war had taken so much, but it had also given me something worth fighting for, and I wouldn't let anything happen to her. Not while I still had breath in my body. We moved under the cover of darkness, the oppressive weight of secrecy and urgency pressing down on us. The base's perimeter loomed ahead, a maze of security protocols and armed guards. My mind raced through the plan, swift and silent. Every step a calculated risk. "Stay close," I whispered to Serena and Leora. Serena's expression was a mix of determination and weariness, while Leora, ever the enigma, clung to my side, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and trust. We slipped through the shadows, avoiding the harsh floodlights that swept the grounds. The base was a fortress designed to repel any threat, but it wasn't impregnable. Not to a determined man with nothing left to lose at the edge of the landing bay. A sleek transport ship awaited, its engines idling in standby mode. I had bribed the right people, twisted enough arms, and now it was time to cash in those favors. "Go," I urged, motioning Serena and Leora forward. We sprinted across the open space, hearts pound and every second stretching into an eternity. We reached the ship just as the alarm blared. Our cover was blown. Soldiers poured from the barracks, weapons drawn, but we were already inside the hatch, ceiling shut behind us. I sprinted to the cockpit. Serena right behind me. "Strap in," I shouted, fingers flying over the controls. The ship roared to life, the hum of the engines a promise of escape. Leora strapped herself in her small hands. Trembling, I glanced back, meeting her eyes for a fleeting second, then focused on the task at hand. Serena settled into the co-pilot seat, her presence both a comfort and a reminder of the stakes. The ship lifted off the ground. Falling away beneath us, searchlights pierced the darkness, and the base's anti-aircraft guns swiveled to lock onto US. I pushed the throttle forward, the ship's engines straining as we accelerated into the sky. "We need to move faster," Serena said, her voice tight. "They're closing in." "I know," I muttered. Guiding the ship through a series of evasive maneuvers, laser fire streaked past us. Close enough to rattle the hull. "Hold on." We broke through the atmosphere, the vast expanse of space opening up before us, but our troubles were far from over. Enemy ships, both human and alien, patrolled the sector. "Our escape had triggered a broader alert course plotted," Serena reported, "but we'll need to dodge patrols all the way. Keep an eye on them." I said, "I'll handle the flying." The next few hours were a blur of tension and adrenaline. We weaved through asteroid fields, skirted around enemy patrols, and narrowly avoided detection, more times than I cared to count. The ship systems beeped incessantly, warnings and alerts merging into a constant cacophony. Leora sat silently, her eyes wide as she watched the stars streak past. She seemed calmer now, perhaps reassured by our determination, or maybe she was just exhausted. "How are you holding up?" I asked, not taking my eyes off the controls. I'm okay, she replied softly. Just time tired, we'll find a safe place to rest soon, I promised. Hoping it was true, we're almost out of their reach. Eventually, the enemy's signals faded from our senses. We had crossed into a more remote part of space, less patrolled but still dangerous in its own right. We should be safe for now, Serena said, leaning back in her seat with a sigh of relief, but we can't stay here long. I know, I replied, finally allowing myself to relax a fraction. We'll find somewhere to land and regroup. I set a course for a small, uncharted moon. I remembered from previous reconnaissance missions it was barren and inhospitable, but it would provide the cover we needed as we descended. The stark landscape came into view, rocky plains and jagged mountains devoid of life. We'll rest here, I said, guiding the ship to a landing. It's not much, but it's safe. The ship touched down with a gentle thud, and I powered down the engines. The sudden silence was almost deafening after the chaos of our escape. Let's get some rest, I said. Unstrapping myself from the pilot's seat, we need to be ready for whatever comes next. We set up a small camp inside the ship, rationing out supplies and making sure the ship was secure. Leora curled up in a makeshift bed, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Serena and I took turns keeping watch, neither of us willing to let our guard down completely. As the hours passed, the adrenaline ebbed away, leaving me with a goring sense of unease. We had escaped. But the danger was far from over. General Thorne would not give up easily, and we still had no clear plan. Beyond survival in the quiet moments, I found myself reflecting on the past, on the choices that had led me here. The war had taken so much friends, comrades, my sense of purpose, but now with Leora, I felt a spark of something. I thought I'd lost hope. The next day, we ventured outside the ship to assess our surroundings. The moon was as barren as it had looked from above, but it offered some cover and a chance to plan our next move. How long do you think we can stay here? Serena asked, scanning the horizon. Not long, I replied. We need to keep moving. Thorne will be looking for us. Leora stayed close to me, her eyes taking in the alien landscape despite everything. She seemed curious, her fear tempered by a sense of wonder. Have you ever been somewhere like this before? I asked her. She shook her head. No, it's different. Stay close, I said. It's not safe out here. We spent the day making repairs to the ship and going over our options. Serena and I discussed potential safe havens and contacts who might be able to help us. It was clear we couldn't do this alone. There's an old friend of mine, Serena said. A smuggler named Jar. He owes me a favor. He might be able to get us to the archive. Do you trust him? I asked, skeptical. Trust? No. But he's reliable and he values his debts, all right. I said it's a start. As night fell, we gathered inside the ship. Leora, still grappling with the weight of her abilities, seemed quieter than usual. I sat down next to her, trying to offer some comfort. You're doing great. I said, I know this is all overwhelming, but you're strong. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with questions. Why is this happening to me? Why am I different? I sighed, wishing I had better answers. I don't know, I admitted, but I promise we'll figure it out together. She nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. Thank you, Alex. The next day, we prepared to leave the moon and continue our journey. As we lifted off, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, but the senses showed nothing, and we had no choice but to press on. Our path took us through hostile territories, regions where neither human nor alien forces held sway. These were wild, dangerous places filled with treacherous landscapes and predatory creatures one day. As we navigated a narrow canyon, the ship's sensors picked up movement. Hostile wildlife, attracted by the noise of our engines, swarmed our position. Get ready, I shouted, grabbing my weapon. We've got company. Leora and Serena prepared themselves as the creatures closed in. They were large reptilian beasts with razor-sharp claws and teeth. They attacked in packs, driven by a relentless hunger. Stay close. I yelled. Firing at the nearest creature, the shot hit its mark, but more took its place. Leora, her fear giving way to determination, raised her hands. A shimmering barrier formed around us, the creature's attacks bouncing harmlessly off. Her control was growing, her power becoming more refined. Keep it up, I encouraged, taking down another beast. Serena fought beside me, her alien weapons cutting through the attackers with precision. We worked as a team, our movements coordinated and efficient. Finally, the last of the creatures fell, their bodies littering the canyon floor. We took a moment to catch our breath. the adrenaline still exing through our veins. That was close. I said, looking at Leora. You did great. She smiled, though it was tinged with exhaustion. Thank you. We continued our journey, the challenges strengthening our bond. Leora's abilities grew more pronounced. Her control, improving with each encounter, she began to experience vivid visions, fragments of the past that revealed cryptic snippets of a time when humans and aliens were allies. One night, as we camped on a desolate plain, Leora awoke from a troubled sleep. I saw something, she said, her voice trembling. An ancient place, a hidden planet. I think it's where we need to go. Serena and I exchanged a glance. Tell us more. More, Serena urged gently. Leora closed her eyes. Focusing on the vision, there were symbols like the ones we saw in the cavern, a place of peace where humans and aliens came together. I think it's the archive that's our next destination. I said, my resolve hardening. We find that planet and we find the answers. We need. Our journey took us through more hostile territories. Each challenge testing our resolve. We faced treacherous landscapes from scorching deserts to freezing tundras, each one pushing us to our limits. One day, as we crossed a particularly desolate region, we encountered a group of survivors. They were a ragtag band of humans and aliens, eking out an existence in the harsh environment. They offered us shelter and supplies, grateful for our help in fending off